All right. Bracket number 2. Low inventory. 11 ways to generate more listings ASAP. So we're obviously in the low inventory world. And these are some things that we can do. And Nicole and I are going to pick out what we believe every agent should be doing right now out of these 11. So number 1, expired listings that are 3 to 12 months old. Going after those. 3 to 12 months old.
What are we saying? Yay or nay? Is that what is that our thing here?
Yeah, I mean, we'll pick our top one. This one is definitely going to be in the bottom half for me. And
12 months.
I built my business off of expired listings.
Yep.
Right. And Nicole knows how much our team has trained on expired, not in the last year, obviously, because the market's shifted. But historically, we've been very heavy on expired scripts and Mojo and V7 and going after expireds. This is not a valuable use of time compared to some of the other things on this list that you can be doing. If there is still, a lonely expired out there, sure, go after it. Not at the top of the list for me.
No, but I do have to say that I would go back probably even further than 12 months. I would see individuals that were maybe looking 3 years ago. Again, their days on market are probably atrocious. Yeah. And those are the sellers that were overpriced because they were still thinking that their house was worth what it was worth in 2005. And now you can actually have those conversations with those sellers though and be like, hey dude, like what you had it listed for 3 years, I can definitely guarantee you getting that or more. So again, I think
overpriced. 3 to 5 years.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. Again, I would go back further than 3 months. I would, and I would go back further than 1 year too. So I don't think that you should exclude the expired completely, but I do think you need to sort of put your search back a little bit further and grab those individuals that tried years ago, or at least have a conversation with them. Like, why were you wanting to sell then and now you don't? Again, if anything, I think it would. I would put this probably at my top or half, but that's me.
Okay. Yep. Well, what you're describing, going all the way back, I put that up the list. But as they describe it,
total racket
in the bottom part of my list.
Yeah.
In search of posts on social media, I would argue that this should be a video. And I love where they're starting with this. We talk about this with the team all the time.
All the time.
I'm working with a family looking for a 3-bed, 2-bath home. I'd actually get permission from the family. I'm working with Mr. and Mrs. Jones. They're looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath property in Guilford, Connecticut. And I'd appreciate you, at first I would tell the story instead of just coming right out with, I appreciate you, that's the close,
right?
Considering selling. I'd have 3 bullet points of like, here's the properties we've looked at, here's the struggles we've had, here's the amount of offers we've made, here's the solutions that we've provided moving forward. And if you know of anybody, this is what I do for my clients. If you know of anybody that is thinking about selling in the coming months and would like to meet Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I'd love to make that introduction. So yeah, this is towards the top of my list in video form, not just writing it on social. Everybody's doing that.
Everybody is writing it on social. Yeah.
Farming. It's the most fundamental way to generate listings.
Well, I think this is just something that should just be part of what you're doing regardless though.
Yeah.
Do you go heavier? I guess, but again, as we get further down, you start talking about like circle prospecting. I think picking up the phone in this situation is so much more urgent than like putting out a mailer.
The problem with farming is it's typically takes 12 months to really start seeing growth from your farm. So it's not something you can implement today. Should it be part of your business, to your point? Yes. Is it something that's going to generate you listings right now? No. And if you need listings now, it's probably towards the bottom of my list because you can't have that expectation on day one of a farming campaign.
Absolutely.
Number 4, door knocking.
So I think if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic, I would put this pretty close to the top of the list. I think that, again, much like the farming, and again, when we get back down to circle prospecting or calling an expired, I do think that the door knocking is certainly part of your follow-up. But again, I'm still a little hesitant about the whole door knocking thing during an epidemic.
Yeah, I think it depends on where you live. One, so, on the Connecticut shoreline where a lot of the properties are spread out and you don't have, you don't have like, these quarter lot neighborhoods where you just have house after house after house after house. That becomes harder to door knock. it is winter, or well, it is spring now, but
Ish.
the weather's not perfect all the time, and we are in the middle of a pandemic, and the culture in the Northeast, around a pandemic is different than if you look at Florida, where
Right.
you have a gated community,
Yes.
you have homes very close to each other, you can be outside safely and social distance, and the culture there would be a little bit more comfortable with a door knock. So if you're in one of those areas, you have to understand, obviously you have to understand your market.
Right.
But if you're in one of those areas, yeah, I would probably be thinking about door knocking. And, like Florida, for example, a lot of those communities are gated, so you have to be in there and have permission to do that, or living there. So you have to follow the rules wherever you are. But yeah, I think if you can get, if you can use your time to your advantage, you're in one of those nice neighborhoods in California. Now, maybe the culture there, to your point with the pandemic, wouldn't want you, door knocking.
Right.
But yeah, if it's going to be generally accepted, I'd go ahead and do that. Probably not the top of my list though either.
Yeah. No.
Number 5, this one is at the very top of my list. I can tell you right now, this is my number one thing every agent should be doing. That's circle prospecting. This gives you the ability to help 2 people at once. It helps the consumer, the homeowner that you're calling, because you're providing value and information about a house that was just listed down the road and sold with multiple offers, or about a buyer that you have that's looking in their specific neighborhood, who has made offers in the neighborhood and who's been outbid and is still looking, and you're trying to uncover one person, one neighbor, one friend of theirs who's thinking about selling. You're doing right by your buyer by working stuff off the MLS, and you're doing right by the homeowners and consumers by calling them and not selling them. You're providing instant value about their neighborhood that they probably didn't know before, because they're busy with life and they're not, completely paying attention to everything that's going on. So that one is at the very top of my list. We've had agents on our team have a ton of success using circle prospecting. You can do that. We don't get paid for, to say this. You can go on, which we should get an affiliate link with Mojo, but you can go on Mojo and get the neighborhood search and use circle prospecting through that dialogue.
I think what's interesting and important, I shouldn't say interesting, but important to note here, again, and you mentioned sort of both ways that this can work, because I know that our agents have been really successful because they have buyers looking in neighborhoods, and you're, reaching out to the homeowner, seeing if they know anyone that wants to list. But in this article, they're actually telling you to call the neighbors when you have a new house coming on the market too. So it's sort of like a flip way of, hey, do you know any buyers that are looking to move into your neighborhood? But that easily could move into getting additional listings in the neighborhood if they then know that like the neighbor is coming on and like what the price is and what are they going to be able to get. So circle prospecting can certainly work both ways, where if you don't have a buyer but you have a listing, go for it. And again, if you don't have a listing but you have a buyer, like go for it. So again, because I know a lot of agents like to come up with excuses for not actually doing it. So in this situation, there's really sort of zero excuse if you have something going on. And if somebody on your team has a listing coming on, or somebody within your brokerage has a listing coming on. So no excuses.
I was just on Tom Ferry's podcast. You should go check it out if you haven't already. And I brought up circle prospecting, and Tom's like, it's been around since the 60s. Like, it's been around since the 60s through every single market because it works. Right. So in this market, for sure, with low inventory, you should definitely use it. All right, open houses, yay or nay on the opens right now?
So I'm always a huge lover of the open house. I think where agents sort of ignore the importance of them is that there are buyers coming through, obviously, to buy it, but you never know when that buyer is also needing to sell. So it's almost sort of like an interview too. Like, what are you doing at the open house? How are you trying to sell it? Like, again, I think that open houses are beautiful. I think though too, that these are wonderful opportunities. Again, and I don't want to use the word obviously farming, but this is a great time for you to send out mailers to invite the neighbors. This is a whole nother way of doing a circle prospecting. So if you're going to be spending the 2 hours at an open house, this is a great opportunity to invite the neighbors, make phone calls, introduce yourself. And then again, when buyers do come through, make sure like your game is on, because again, if not many people are doing open houses and you're the agent that's out doing them, I mean, this is your time to shine. I think that open houses through all of it that's always been my biggest generator for leads or just long-term relationships. So open houses are always important and huge in generating listings for sure.
And in a low inventory environment, you're going to get visitors at your open house.
Tons of visitors.
Yeah.
Almost to the point, too,
safely.
where you're kind of like, oh, shit, like I can't talk to all of these people. But again, use that opportunity to invite all of the neighbors, too. Like, hey, your neighbor's house is coming on the market. They'll be so much more apt to actually read that than, hey, like the market is up 25% because they got 9 of those from all the other agents. So
it's likely the best story you can tell on any given week through your social, through to your point, the calls that you're making, the invitations that you're making, and do it safely so that when they show up, they feel very comfortable with you and having a conversation through the mask with you. But I would say open houses for sure. Unsolicited video CMAs is number 7. Yeah, I mean, I like this. If you're really targeting a certain area, I do like this. Probably not at the very top of my list, but sure, I like this. And you know who I like it better for? Is the people who have bought a home from you, if you've been in the industry this long, 5, 6, 7 years ago. You know, those people who you just don't know. If you drop a CMA and they realize what their value is, they may be thinking about moving. Life changes after 5, 6, 7 years, even if they said it was their dream house.
I like that idea.
5 years ago.
I never even really thought of it. Because again, you've been in their home. Because I think the biggest problem with people providing dollars towards someone's home, they're like, well, my house is so much better than that house across the street. So again, if you're dropping them unsolicited, sometimes it could backfire because they feel like maybe you sort of underrated. But I love your idea of revisiting all of your past clients because, again, you are pretty familiar with their home. And if not, it's a great way to touch them again. And maybe they know somebody that wants to sell or buy. I like that one.
That's right. You're starting the conversation with your past
Absolutely.
clients. Always a good thing. Number 8, expired listings and for sale by owner listings, but they already said expired.
We already talked about expired.
Well, they listed again.
Huh. Oh, they expired.
That are specific 3 to 12. Now they're just saying expired in general or for sale by owners. Obviously, for sale by owners. I love this one. You got to go create the relationship.
I love for sale by owners.
At extreme amounts of value without expectation. So you need to educate, and follow up. See how the process is going. See if you can help them. See if you can do, if you are really starting out in this industry and you need a listing, offer to host an open house for free. You're going to pick up buyers. You're going to meet a lot of people in the community. And then you're going to tell those people who, to Nicole's point earlier about open houses, might be interviewing for you for a listing of their own. Hey, I decided, I asked, Mr. Jones, Mrs. Jones, if I could host an open house, use all my marketing with no expectation. This is what I'm doing for the community. This is how I'm giving back to our neighborhood. People are going to be like, whoa, I want to hire this. I want to hire this person.
100%. I mean, I got a for sale by owner maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I got interviewed for it. They decided to do it on their own, but then they asked me for a photographer's number. They asked me for what wall color they should paint. They said, what color, like what lighting should I put in? And I answered all of them. And as soon as it didn't sell, they came right back. And again, I was then able to, use the photos because I knew the photographer and I knew that the wall colors were right because I told them what to do. So it's very interesting though, because I do think that there are going to be a lot more for sale by owners in this market because it's moving so quickly. So sellers are probably thinking that they can do it on their own. So I agree with you. I mean, hosting an open house would be a wonderful option. Or if you notice something that's sort of like maybe off in their listing, just to kind of give them a little bit of advice. Like if they're not doing professional photos, maybe again, offer them sort of that additional service. It may not end up working because again, things seem to be selling so quickly, but I think that if you continue, like you're saying, to feed them some information, hey, are you sure you have all the contracts that you need when you're listing? Just things like that would be very helpful. But that would not be top of my list. I don't know that I'd be going after for sale by owners.
It's a lot of time. So you got to really, be out of some of these other options. Orphaned neighborhoods, number 9, which is basically what they're saying, a 3 to 5 year old track built home by a national builder. Their sales team has now left the neighborhood, and this is more of a farming play to me.
Definitely more of a farming play.
It's going to be bottom of the list to get instant business now.
Definitely a farming thing.
Past buyers, we just mentioned that, going after your past buyers and dropping that CMA off. Absolutely, your past buyers, especially those that are 5 years plus. If you've been in the industry that long, you should be talking to all of your past buyers. You should have been doing it in 2020 to make sure that they refied. for sure. But if you haven't, you should be doing it now. Number 11, online seller leads. Absolutely. Google for sure. You want to make sure your reviews are up on Google. Facebook ads. Facebook ads for sellers are going to be 12 months out, so a little bit more, long term there. But creating content around solutions for sellers, would be the way I would go about that, and running Facebook ads off of that original content that you produce. Good one there.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think things to think about.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So top of my list is the
Circle prospecting. I figured.
What did you have?
I'm just an open house lover. I always have been.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll bitch and complain about them, but if you do them right and execute on them properly and have your shtick tight, I mean, you'll have business for life.